Hey guys, tonight we're settling into a lovely, soft spot on the couch as we dive into the shadowy corners of art history, where brilliant minds and big personalities collided in a colorful canvas of rivalries and inspirations. You've probably already heard way too much about Leonardo da Vinci, the genius, the legend, the guy who made us all feel a tad lazy by doodling helicopters for fun. But tonight, we're exploring the lives of those brave enough to try and keep up with him. Spoiler: you probably won't survive this without chuckling at least once at their antics. Before you get too comfy, feel free to tap like or subscribe, but only if you're genuinely enjoying the calm around here. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is over there. I love seeing how far this sleepy little journey reaches. Now, go ahead and lower the lights. Maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let's drift gently into tonight's story together. You wake up in the bustling streets of Florence during the height of the Renaissance, a time when everyone seems to be absolutely convinced they're the next big thing in art. As you stroll through the lively squares, filled with the aroma of fresh bread and the chatter of merchants, you wander into a world where artists were just like influencers, jostling for attention and a sprinkle of patronage. You might find yourself pondering how different this is from, say, scrolling through TikTok, where everyone's trying to outdo each other's dance moves. Now, let's meet one of Leonardo's most notable rivals, a painter whose name isn't whispered as often, but who had quite a fan base himself, Andrea del Verrocchio. Known for being Leonardo's mentor turned competitor, Verrocchio was a kind of Renaissance Swiss Army knife in his own right. He did painting, sculpture, and apparently had a knack for teaching. Imagine Verrocchio's workshop. It's less like an elite art studio and more like that messy corner of your room you swear you're going to clean. Just picture easels precariously tilting, paint pots scattered like Lego bricks underfoot, and apprentices sketching furiously to the hum of distant Renaissance music, or at least trying to, without Instagram to distract them. Historians still argue whether Verrocchio felt a giddy pride or a twinge of jealousy seeing his protege, Leonardo, surpass him. It brings to mind that feeling when you teach someone a skill and then get schooled at it. Like when you try to show your friend how to use a new app, only to find out they can now code the thing from scratch. Verrocchio's modest claim to fame is his Baptism of Christ, a piece that rumor says made him hang up his brush out of sheer awe or horror after comparing his angel to Leonardo's. You won't believe this, but they say Leonardo painted just an angel in that masterpiece, and somehow that angel has the look people try to replicate in their vacation selfies. Blessed, serene, and just a bit ethereal. Our pal Andrea might have inadvertently become one of those forgotten precursors, the way certain authors of viral memes never quite achieved the fame of their creations. Leonardo, however, kept reaching for the stars, or at least scribbling notes on how to build them. As you mull over how history often favors its protagonists at the expense of the background characters, you can't help but wonder how many other Verrocchios got lost in Da Vinci's big shadow. Was their work less meaningful, or simply outshone by a brighter, meticulously archived luminescence? Historians still puzzle over the impact of these overshadowed geniuses, like a chess tournament where every player secretly believes they're grandmaster material. You continue your sleepy wander through the Renaissance streets, with cobblestones whispering tales of ambition and friendly strife, leading you to consider how timeless and universal these struggles for recognition truly are. Like, who hasn't wanted to paint the world their way while stuck scrolling through reels on 2% battery, dreaming of not just being remembered, but leaving something worth remembering? In the safe cocoon of bedtime storytelling, with the gentle ticking of the bedside clock and the soft glow of fairy lights casting shadows that almost seem to dance in Renaissance form, let this be the beginning of a journey through the fascinating, sometimes forgotten faces that dared to color both canvas and history right alongside, or despite, Leonardo da Vinci. As you meander through the dimly lit alleyways of Florence, where every corner has a tale to tell, you stumble upon a bustling studio where the paint is as fresh as the gossip. The Renaissance wasn't just an era of monumental art. It was a time when egos clashed like gladiators in the Colosseum. You walk into the world where whispers from the workshop echoed through the city, spreading tales of rivalry and ambition like wildfire burning through dry parchment. You picture yourself wearing a paint-splattered apron, trying not to trip over a bunch of unruly canvases, kind of like weaving through a maze of grocery bags that have somehow exploded all over your kitchen floor. In this corner of history, one of the loudest whispers belonged to another towering figure of the time, Sandro Botticelli. This guy was known for capturing beauty and grace on canvas in a way that felt like he had an exclusive filter from heaven's own photo editing software. Now, Botticelli wasn't exactly Leonardo's biggest rival in the way Marvel fans are divided between Iron Man and Captain America, but they certainly shared the same creative playground. Imagine being an artist during a time when everyone was demanding frescoes and portraits, like non-stop requests for customized Spotify playlists. Botticelli was a different sort of artist, more into delicate lines and mythological whispers, like a bedtime story that pours into dreams of ethereal goddesses and flowing landscapes. Historians still argue whether Botticelli's The Birth of Venus, a visual symphony of fluid grace and godly allure, was his own subtle way of responding to the detailed intricacies and enigmatic smiles that marked Leonardo's work. It's like artists were perpetually drafting clapbacks at each other, but with paintbrushes and philosophical musings. Funny enough, Botticelli wasn't just about painting celestial mythos. He was reputed to be quite the character to boot, weaving drama into his art like a Renaissance reality show. One quirky tidbit that lights up Botticelli's story is his reputed fascination with fiery preacher Savonarola. Picture Botticelli, an undeterred artist, watching Florence set to chaos under Savonarola's zealous bonfires, where artworks and manuscripts went up in flames. It's like deleting your social apps to focus under false promises. Only here, this focus might cost a masterpiece or two. This religious fervor reportedly caused him to destroy some of his own art, leaving folks today to speculate what lost wonders might have whispered through history, only to be muted by those same flames. And then there were the workshops. Imagine these spaces less like somber, silent sanctuaries of deep concentration and more like bustling coffee shops filled with noise, the occasional frustration-fueled outburst, and the comforting clatter of craftsmanship in progress. The artists who worked alongside or near Leonardo were both inspired and, let's face it, probably a little intimidated by his omnipresent shadow. It's a bit like sharing a group chat with someone who never runs out of memes, leaving you in awe but slightly miffed. your own jokes get drowned out. These workshop whispers didn't just carry tales of jealousy, but of collaboration too, where artistic aces swapped secrets like sneakerheads swap rare kicks. Botticelli and Leonardo might have rippled differently in the Renaissance fabric, but together they wove a complex tapestry of artistic evolution. And again, historians can't completely decide whether they spoke more through respectful nods or playful jabs. As the haziness of evening settles, remember that every sleepy story woven tonight meanders deeper into the minds of those who danced around Leonardo's legacy like moths near a flame. With that sleepy dog at your feet, drifting into a donut-like slumber, perhaps it's time to wonder how these artists, with their soaring dreams and occasional foibles, left imprints on a world that would eventually be enveloped by technology, memes, and, curiously enough, TikTok art tutorials. The moon hangs like a dim lantern over Florence, and as the city settles into its nocturnal rhythm, your imagination leads you to another bustling workshop, one echoing with clamor and creativity. This time, you're drawn into the domain of none other than the brooding genius himself, Michelangelo Buonarroti. Known for his tempestuous spirit and unparalleled skills, he was the kind of artist who could carve poetry out of marble if only the stone didn't try to argue back. Michelangelo and Leonardo, at first glance, had more in common than they'd probably care to admit. They both had a knack for leaving projects sidelined like a stack of unread notifications, each awaiting its own dramatic resolution. Yet, it's their rivalry that historians love to dissect under the glow of metaphorical lamps, still squabbling over the exact nature of their discord. Were they competitors seeking the same limelight, or simply two titans with thunderous talents unable to share the skies? Picture the banter between these two as something of a Renaissance rap battle, albeit sans microphones and with the added pressure of chisel and brush. Supposedly, they were both called upon to paint opposing walls in Florence's Palazzo Vecchio, a project that never saw completion. Historians still argue whether this was simply an artistic gunslinger standoff, each waiting for the other to blink first, or brush first, as the case may be. Here's a chuckle-worthy quirk. Michelangelo, famed overwhelmingly as a sculptor, was known to be just a tad sensitive about criticism. Imagine the scene. Michelangelo furiously sculpting away, ears burning with the whispers of critics. A bit like seeing someone react to comments on a viral post, checking every other minute to refresh the likes and love notes from friends and frenemies alike. Despite the competitive undertones, you might imagine them exchanging less than gracious nods in the corridors of Renaissance Florence, perhaps with an unspoken agreement to always steal just a bit of each other's spotlight. Leonardo, with his insatiable curiosity, was the original Renaissance multitasker, dabbling in everything from anatomy to aerodynamics. Michelangelo, on the other hand, churned out grandiose works of art that have survived social media's most relentless criticism, time itself. While historians scratch their chins over whether Michelangelo secretly admired or outright resented Leonardo, you can't help but liken their artistic tug-of-war to the way people today compare whose phone takes the better selfie. It's always a bit subjective and a tad dramatic. And honestly, that's half the fun. But here's the wild part. Despite the alleged friction, both Leonardo and Michelangelo left legacies that spurred a Renaissance domino effect, inspiring not just their contemporaries, but reaching through the ages to share glimpses of their world with ours. It's like binge-watching episodes of a centuries-old drama series starting with paint and finishing with legend. And yes, their creative genius would still trend today. Surrounded by the hum of an evening settling like a cozy blanket, your mind drifts on, exploring the echoes of these titans of creativity and their profound influence. Hidden within the crevices of history are countless stories yet to surface, like watercolors waiting to be brushed with life. So you ponder, nestled in your warm nook, laptop fan humming a gentle lullaby. Just what stories remain to be told of those rivalries that sparked, flickered, and flamed through the Renaissance night. Against the backdrop of Florence's tranquil night, the stories of these artistic rivalries continue to swirl around you like the soft brushstrokes of a half-forgotten fresco. It's time to peel back another layer on the palette of history and feature those artists whose paths intersected with Leonardo's in more peculiar ways. Think of these creators like side quests in a video game. Underrated, often overlooked, yet unexpectedly delightful. Here, let's talk about a certain architect who dared to sketch designs that spiraled towards the heavens with ambitious flair. Filippo Brunelleschi, a genius in his own right, whose work still towers over Florence's skyline today. While Brunelleschi is a bit of a predecessor rather than a direct rival of Leonardo, he definitely set the stage for competitive brilliance in art and innovation. Filippo Brunelleschi is the father of linear perspective, that shiny new trick that changed the game for Renaissance artists. If you've ever stared at a painting and marveled at the breathtakingly realistic depth, you've got Brunelleschi to thank. Historians still debate just how much Leonardo was influenced by Brunelleschi's architectural marvels and mind-bending perspective theories. Perhaps it was a case of following in the footsteps of giants, or maybe just a reluctance to admit he had competition. One quirky, rather endearing tidbit about Brunelleschi was his zest for problem-solving. When entrusted with constructing the Great Dome for Florence's Santa Maria del Fiore, he famously refused to explain how he'd do it, proposing a challenge instead. Legend has it, he asked his peers to stand an egg upright on a flat surface to convey his method's ingenuity. And when they couldn't, he simply cracked the egg's shell so it could sit flat. It was a kind of Renaissance mic drop moment, if you will. One of those you won't believe what happened tales artists shared across tavern tables. Imagine Brunelleschi and Leonardo occasionally nodding in mutual respect across the piazza, but aware of how their legacies would forever intertwine. They were like two apps on your phone that perform different tasks, but somehow compete for battery life. Each one a life-altering tool on its own. In their own ways, these maestros of artistry and architecture layered your world with wonders that would enthrall generations beyond themselves. Your thoughts drift gently from these multifaceted geniuses to wander through times when the art world felt as intimately competitive as a closely fought chess match, but with color. It's like you've stepped into a Renaissance chessboard where every move could ignite applause or envy, or both. As your eyelids grow heavier, lulled by the warm glow of this Renaissance reflection, consider how these creative souls, despite their rivalries, together orchestrated something akin to a bygone symphony, full of intricate melodies and variations that continue to echo lovingly in the annals of history. Their quests for grandeur might have been fueled by rivalry or admiration, rolling into one, like hues blending on a painter's palette. So, maybe the question isn't whose genius shone brighter, but how their brilliance cast a lasting light for those who followed. wrapped in your blankets, thoughts drifting like clouds across a sky full of stars, knowing that every time we glimpse the artistry and architecture they left behind, we're really stepping into stories woven with both competition and camaraderie, reminiscing dreamily by the canvas glow of their ageless triumphs. The gentle murmur of night envelopes you as you imagine yourself stepping into yet another chapter of this artistic tapestry. This time, let's explore those artists who, though perhaps lesser known, dared to stand in the dazzling light cast by Leonardo and company. A bit like indie musicians sharing a festival stage with rock legends. Meet Perugino, a painter whose works might just give you a taste of calm serenity, much like hearing a plucky acoustic guitar riff amidst an electric symphony. Pietro Perugino was renowned for his harmonious compositions, gentle figures, and those silky, smooth draperies you'd want to touch if only you dared. Now, Perugino might not have had the mercurial genius of Leonardo, but he sure did leave a thumbprint on the Renaissance with his own consistent flair. Historians still argue whether his influence was more profound in the realm of religious art or in the realm of paving the way for his students, one of whom you might know, Raphael, as in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fame. Kidding. But seriously, Raphael would become an even bigger artistic force not too long after. Let's take a moment for a fun, quirky aside. Picture Perugino working away, with one story claiming that he had quite the obsession with cleanliness in his studio. His apprentices might have given a nod or an eye roll to his insistence on keeping things pristine, where paints and brushes were organized with the precision of an expert Tetris player. The sight of him tidying up conjures images of someone binge-watching cleaning videos, happily aligning pigments as if each hue could whisper a secret of celestial harmony. Within the corridors of Renaissance workshops, Perugino's works were sometimes the quieter sibling, overshadowed by Leonardo's flamboyant flair. But even in quietness, he left canvases upon which aspiring artists could weave their dreams. And just like in modern emails, where kind regards can sometimes hide a smidge of sass, Perugino's placid art belied the fierce competition simmering in those gilded corridors of time. So, historians still find themselves pondering certain open questions. Did Perugino feel a tinge of jealousy towards his more notorious peers? Or was he comforted by his own legacy, knowing he'd shaped the likes of Raphael? Or maybe, like finding a fuzzy pair of mismatched socks that mysteriously match your vibe, he was content crafting beauty on his own terms, with thoughts clouding softly like a painted sky. Consider how these quieter voices added depth to the artistic symphony of the Renaissance. Every stroke, a meaningful part of the larger whole, reverberating in tones that are gentle yet insistent, echoing beyond centuries, much like a song that never loses its sentiment. As you sit there, letting the warmth of the story seep into you, like your favorite late-night cup of tea, let these musings about Perugino and his kin settle around you. These were artists who, despite living in those swirling, dynamic times, conjured serenity with every brushstroke and refrained from racing as swift as Leonardo's enigmatic mind. They had their own leisurely pace, each contributing to the extraordinary Renaissance mosaic in a profound yet soothing way. In the quiet embrace of the night, your journey takes another thoughtful turn. Picture yourself ambling down cobbled streets, your mind a canvas yet to be painted with the vibrant discussions that echoed around the studios where artists clashed and collaborated. Amid the hushed whispers, and the distinctive smell of linseed oil, you find yourself drawn into a lively debate, a battle of the canvases, all about who could capture the essence of human experience in a way that would stand the test of time. Your next stop is the fiercely talented Giorgione, an enigmatic figure wrapped as mystifyingly as his paintings. Known for his adventurous use of color and light, Giorgione's works whispered subtle beauty rather than proclaiming it loudly, almost like how some people prefer reading lengthy, winding novels to binge watching a quick TV drama. He painted with a voice so delicate, it was like the flickering flame of a whispered candle in the crowded streets of Venice. Historians still debate the exact nature of his relationship with Leonardo and others in the sphere, but Giorgione was undoubtedly a huge influence on future masters like Titian. His style, full of charm, yet steeped in mystery, was something of a Renaissance mystery box. Open it, and you never knew whether you'd find serene beauty, quiet melancholy, or something nudging at the boundaries of the divine. One humorous gem about Giorgione springs from the vagueness of his biography. You could say historians are like detectives, trying to piece together tales told at art salons, where every tale grows taller than the last. Perhaps Giorgione was a rock star artist who preferred the chill, indie vibes. He painted few works, yet each crafted with such care that scholars still find hidden narratives crouching behind the serene faces in his Tempest. Imagine a painter crafting enigmatic masterpieces like those unread novels piling high on hipster shelves, not always fully comprehended, yet profoundly admired. As you drift into musings on Giorgione, you start to wonder whether he and Leonardo had ever truly gelled, or if they danced carefully around each other like handsome duelists in an elaborate Renaissance masquerade. Historians are still squabbling over such nuances, pondering if Giorgione viewed the older maestro with awe or simply a nod of artistic acknowledgement. In your modern world, it's an odd but plausible parallel to imagine these artists as influencers of their era, minus the screens. Each stroke of their brush was like scrolling to create the perfect image amidst a landscape of fleeting attention spans. Could one picture promise 1,000 scrolls, likes, or shares? Perhaps not, but its timelessness might earn it a spotlight that beams through centuries. Wandering deeper into this artistic melee, consider how even the soft whispers of their world influence the cacophony of ours. Every quiet rivalry and partnership of the past adds texture to the canvas of history, where stories mingled as vibrantly as the pigments mixed on their palettes. As you delve into the dreamscape shaped by this battle of the canvases, think of how these artists, living amidst competition and creativity, pursued timeless beauty, granting us endless mysteries to unwrap today. Much like opening your eyes to a picturesque sunrise that speaks of beauty only truly understood at a gentle pace, when shadows finally give way to light. As you breathe in the calm of the narrative, imagine stepping into yet another vibrant scene. This time, you find yourself in a studio, echoing with the quiet intensity of focused artists whose hands dance with charcoal and chalk. These are some of the unsung heroes of the Renaissance, sketching out dreams that would sometimes overshadow even Leonardo's bold and intricate designs, though mostly in the eagerly scribbled margins of history. Let's meet Vincenzo Tamagni, a student of Raphael, who often hovered in the background like a wallflower at a party. Vincenzo honed his craft amidst a swirl of influential figures, his own sketches whispering the potential of greatness, like someone finally finding their groove on a second cup of coffee. Historians still raise their eyebrows, pondering the extent of his influence while his mentors basked in sunlight. Did his quiet demeanor mask a vivid creative soul, or simply contentment in his reinforcement role to more prominent artists? This space feels like scribbling down random thoughts and inspirations into the back of a notebook during a lecture. Ideas tangling together, awaiting their chance to bloom. Vincenzo and others like him embraced what could be described as the slower fame route, letting their sketchbooks be seen more like a private journal, curated with care, though not thrust into the luminescent limelight. Here's a quirky nibble of history. These sketchbooks were akin to today's draft folders, where thoughts lay awaiting their moment or forever slept forgotten. Yet, to stumble upon a sketch considered lost is like finding an old photo in the attic and reminiscing about times gone by. The memories dancing in the sunbeams of recollection. Though Leonardo's notebooks are the stuff of legend, revered by historians like mountains carved out by artists' dreams, these lesser-known sketchers spoke their own quiet dialects of artistry. For them, each line drawn was a meditation, a moment of boundless creation within cramped atelier walls, echoing with quiet, unvoiced dreams. A little like grounding your thoughts in yoga or finding solace in the rhythmic hum of rain against the window pane. And so, you wonder whether Vincenzo and his ilk ever saw their temporary moments of fame as sideline sketches to masterpiece works, or as milestones in greenlining their own unique path and presence. Historians still argue over these deviations and ambitions, tracing each stroke of charcoal as if they were breadcrumbs dropped during a Renaissance walkabout, with your mind drawn to the charcoal arcs that these artists laid down. It's like kneading memories lost in time, captured delicate strands, weaving together tales of perseverance and quiet vitality. Perhaps not etched into the annals of time with the grand bravado of a finished masterpiece, yet there they remain, tucked snug in the echoes of art whispered gently with each practiced flick of chalk. As you exhale this quiet evening of reflection, feeling the weight of history light on your shoulders, you consider all these sketch artists as figures without whom the beauty of the Renaissance wouldn't resonate so. These creatives, who penned shadows with the tender touch of charcoal and chalk, subtly contours our understanding of a time bursting with dreams, their echoes enriching each daubed moment. So now, let your mind drift, soothed by the charcoal's whisper, as the night gently pulls its weight of sleep over you, like a blanket of starlit sky. As the night deepens and you find yourself wrapped in the hushed tones of history's quieter corners, imagine stepping into a grand hall where ambition towers as high as the ceiling frescoes. Here, architects weave dreams into solid form, trying to outpace even the lauded feats of Leonardo. Back when architecture wasn't just buildings, but expressions of artistic rivalry etched in stone and mortar. Let's stroll into the world of Bramante, the maestro of architecture whose vision reached towards the heavens in a dance of light and shadow. Donato Bramante, with his grand designs, aimed to transform the architectural landscape, his work laying some of the first stones of what would become St. Peter's Basilica. His ambition was about as subtle as a Renaissance equivalent of going viral. The plans for grandeur were clear and conspicuous. Imagine Bramante at his drawing board, plans spread out in front of him with the enthusiasm of that one friend who can't help but pop Pinterest-perfect sketches into digital chats. His rivals exchanged approving nods and side-eyed glances, torn between respect and envy, as he envisioned spaces where colors would sing like a chorus amidst soaring arches. One curious anecdote that peeks from history's pages is how Bramante was brought to Rome by the dynamic Pope Julius II, whose vision led to friendly yet fierce competitions among artists and architects, paving the way for a new architectural renaissance. Historians still toss around debates on whether Bramante felt the weight of those expectations heavily, or as excitement ripening into motivation. Picture Bramante, his sketches brimming with the conviction of a designer who believed in the power of space to evoke grand emotions, like walking through a modern art museum, where each room tells a story in whispered beauty, each echoing with footfalls just waiting to be heard. Imagine those spaces as venues for emotion, where steps could hold the weight of memories and aspirations alike. As the creative genius behind some of architecture's most epic endeavors, Bramante clashed with Leonardo at times, not just on paper, but in vision. There were tales, akin to architectural rap battles, where they'd each rally their skills, sculpting ideas against a backdrop of Rome's eternal dignity. Historians still argue whether their professional rivalry was tinged with slight envy or genuine camaraderie, a question that feels as open-ended as an untied shoelace in history's march. In this realm of marble and imagination, it's fascinating to note how architects' quests for legacy often spoke louder than mere designs. It's like each stone they laid was magically imbued with the whispered hopes for a future they could only dream about, ones that we now wander through, breathing on cold mornings as sunlight paints century-old carvings with the day's new light. Let yourself ponder how Bramante and his contemporaries, with their bold, aspirational designs, dared to press upon the boundaries of what was conceivable. Indeed, your thoughts tread softly through these towering structures, designed in dream and constructed in reverent intention, each pierced by an architect's hope to engrave eternity into fragility's lot. Drowsy from this grand architectural reverie, let your heart find comfort in the notion that every dream chased into form remains timeless, a testament to an age when the sky was not the limit, but merely the beginning of endless exploration. As you gently close the book on this chapter of exploration, feel the night embrace you in its architect's cradle, a place where shadows dance in soft inspiration under the stars' vigilant watch. Drifting further into the depths of the night, your thoughts take you to the realm of sculptors, where crafting from stone and bronze became a storytelling dance between man and material. This artistic battlefield brought forth some of the most dramatic rivalries, with echoes resounding like the distinct chisel on marble. Consider Benvenuto Cellini, a colorful figure who walked the line between genius and madness, or perhaps he stumbled across it, much like Leonardo in his more eccentric endeavors. Cellini was as much a sculptor as a master of self-promotion. He had a penchant for dramatics that would rival a reality TV star, fully aware that in the crowded Renaissance art scene, making a splash was as important as crafting the art itself. Historians still scratch their heads over Cellini's flamboyant tales, from brawls with rivals to boastful escapades that sound more like Renaissance reality than historical fact. You can almost imagine him today with a TikTok channel, animatedly narrating each larger-than-life escapade with flair, followers entranced by his charismatic chaos rather than his humility. One particularly whimsical and perhaps rib-tickling anecdote stems from Cellini's renowned creation, Perseus with the head of Medusa, which he clumsily claimed was completed under heaven's auspicious alignment. Supposedly, Cellini purported more than once to have supernatural inspiration, as if granting divine permission to highlight his genius. The kind of cheeky claim that just might make it past your spam filter as a click-worthy email. Amid the grandeur of this artistic landscape, you find Michelangelo, the heavyweight in the arena of sculpting, a steadfast mountain beside Cellini's tempestuous seas. Preserved in the very sinew of his David, Michelangelo's mastery sings, whispering stories of dedication carved out of persistence and marble. A stark contrast to Cellini's flamboyant escapades. While historians endlessly debate whether Michelangelo ever truly found Cellini's presence a presence worth even a side-eyed glance, it's rather delightful to imagine these sculptors sparring with deliberate strokes and shadows, each perfecting the art of capturing vitality within the cold embrace of stone. As you gently sweep through your own musings on these sculptors, think about the weight of legacy that each hammer's strike must have carried. Like updating a resume while lying on the floor, every inch of chiseled perfection served to elevate their name, hoping for immortality amidst the immortal stones. In this slumberous journey through time, imagine their workshops filled with half-carved figures that seem to breathe. Feel the faint tremble of creation under your fingers. Their silent stories sneaking quietly into the night, echoing from times past into the soft embrace of your dreams. While the night whispers onward, let these tales of sculptors' fierce dedication and whimsical grandeur inspire you to appreciate the steady hands that coaxed stories from silence, crafting an era that echoes gently yet persistently into our present. As shadows deepen, enveloped by the softest brush of moonlight, you drift and nod off, comforted by knowing that life, like art, is often about carving your path, one gentle, deliberate touch at a time. The night stretches on, and you find yourself ambling into another curious corridor of this storied past, where science and art danced a delightful duet. Turn your thoughts to a time when the lines between these disciplines were thinner than the comforting steam rising from your mug of chamomile tea. In this world, artists became inventors, and creativity knew no bounds. A bit like when you're intent on one task, but intrigued by a dozen more. Enter Leonardo's studio, a space that felt more like a bustling mad scientist's lab at times, filled with blueprints for designs that leaped merrily ahead of their era. His notebooks were akin to a Renaissance Pinterest board, bursting with engineering marvels and anatomical observations some 700 winks beyond their time. You tread lightly, imaginary slipper shuffling through pages of mirrored text and fantastical visions sketched in the calm of lamplight. Yet, Leonardo wasn't the only madcap scholar of his time. Consider the curious figure of Girolamo Cardano, a man who tinkered enthusiastically with mathematics, astrology, and a touch of the arcane. He was the kind of polymath whose evening scrawlings could reside in late-night scatterbrain sessions. Endless tabs open in his mind, thoughts darting like fireflies on the brink of insight. Cardano claimed to have devised practical gadgets alongside his elaborate theories, weaving imagination's tapestry between ingenuities and eccentricities, much like Leonardo. Historians still argue whether his nocturnal concoctions consisted of revolutionary epiphanies or simply the restless ramblings of Knight's youth and age, an everlasting enigma of perhaps genius marred by a swirling context of quirky tales, equal parts inspired and unchained. Imagine Cardano wandering his rooms, eyes gleaming in clever mischief, dropping brilliant designs amid haphazard calculations, an eternal student of the world's wonders. He might have shared a drink with Leonardo, gesticulating grandly about a device to ease life's burdens. Beside each engine of thought work, a cordial camaraderie filled with the sympathetic understanding of kindred spirits. Here's a delightful quirk that survives the ages. Cardano was as fascinated by the workings of luck as those of mechanics, a customary oddity, framing theories for dice and fate, contemplating cosmic hands in earthly play. Picture him explaining to bewildered audiences with twinkling eyes just why the universe dances in chance's delightful rhythm, reminiscent of today's reliance on the whimsy of horoscope predictions. As you launch into the quiet purrs of this scientific creativity's dreams, you might wonder whether the boundaries of genius and eccentricity were ever truly observed, or if they blurred blissfully, guiding us into a world both tangible and ethereal. Historians ponder this dance, tracing the measured step between transcendence and grounded practicality, between dreams and the dawn of realization. And so, your mind wanders through their luminous and shadowed paths, whose items of fancy would one day birth the marvels of today. A sleek smartphone in your hand, space travel, and more. Dreams that Giovanni and Leonardo wove from the tapestry of stars and notebook clutter alike. As you settle deeper into the embrace of the night, feel your imagination take flight, painted by these nighttime tinkerers in a dance reeling between the interconnected worlds of art and science, a gentle reminder of curiosity's timeless allure. Deep into the lazy fold of midnight, your imagination drifts into realms where the power of the pen mingled with the might of the brush. In these enchanted Renaissance corridors, artists weren't confined to color and form alone. They were wordsmiths too, penning letters that spoke as vividly as their paintings, a handwritten art gallery of thoughts. Imagine then Baldassare Castiglione, not an artist by trade, but a courtier and writer whose prose painted portraits almost as detailed as any Da Vinci sketch. With a quill as deft as any master's brush, Castiglione's writings captured the soul of society. His famous The Book of the Courtier was kind of like a Renaissance how-to guide for Become Your Best Self, offering an intricate peek into the life of nobility with a tone both flattering and subtly persuasive, a precursor to all our modern guidebooks, or even an Art of Charm podcast. Let's picture Castiglione, nestled by candlelight, leaning into letters, perhaps exchanging intellectual banter with Leonardo or Raphael. Through these missives, friendships and rivalries were grown, with parchment performing a role not unlike today's endless email chains, except thankfully devoid of those reply-all disasters that somehow manage to turn every inbox into mild confusion. Historians still squabble over the authenticity and undertone of these letters. Were they purely cordial or cleverly coded with criticism snugly woven in those folds of fine paper? You can imagine the chuckles and hidden sighs reading between the lines, perhaps akin to waiting for a crucial email only to find it nestled with metaphors you'd have to decipher at your leisure. One adorable, though slightly bizarre, anecdote from Castiglione's lore is his reported habit of meticulously dressing up his pages with flourishes not just of rhetoric, but artwork as well, like a sneakily hidden Easter egg, or those playful cartoons found in the margins of really old manuscripts. Such was the life of the Renaissance, where art met literary ingenuity and even flirted with a little whimsy. A doodle here, a mini masterpiece there, sprinkled like secret messages. Back then, to engage in correspondence, wasn't merely the fastest means to a quick exchange, but rather an art form in itself. Each letter was a captivating journey, like a friend's voice spilling over the brim of its vessel, laughter or nuance choosing passengers as thoughts sailed across to their destinations, with pauses that felt both eternal and serene. In these chill, cinematic reveries of yours, let yourself wonder how many cordial thrusts of humor or heartfelt camaraderies were hidden amid words penned with deliberation, woven into orchestrations of mischief and mutual admiration. Rivalries, whose tones ebbed and flowed through the ink-soaked pages, long since scattered to time's winnowing winds. And so, warm and cocooned by this night's weaving tale, let your heart resonate with the vibrant tones of correspondences from that time. Written anew in your dreams, these letters continue to whisper across the starlit skies, threading stories that paint silence with hues both earnest and entwined with the ambiance of the ages. Move gently now, through the doorways of gentle sleep, cradled tenderly by the timeless cadence of friendship and art, as words brush each page-clearing brushstroke from language's ornate history. The night unfolds like a well-worn page in a beloved book, swathed in silvery moonlight, and the echoes of hoofbeats traversing the cobblestones of history. As you venture deeper into this Renaissance reverie, the air is charged with the enchanting and often mysterious presence of muses, the figures who inspired artists and left their indelible marks on their art. The notion of the muse is a story as old as time, or at least as timeless as that one piece of clothing you bought but never wore, yet can't bear to part with. Constanza Davalos and Beatrice d'Este, each a captivating presence in their own right, were such muses. Women whose elegance and intellect ignited fires of creativity that illuminated the works of those who beheld them. Imagine them gliding through the courts, graceful and enigmatic as a poem whispered in the dark, their very existence molding artistry into new forms, like a potter shaping clay with sure, gentle hands. Historians still argue over the depth of these muses' influences. Was their impact merely the luster of brief encounters, or did it run deeper, coding emotions and stories into the very fabric of Renaissance masterpieces? You could ponder this like a puzzle, bit by bit over lukewarm coffee, with your thoughts swaying between admiration and speculation. And here's a chuckle-worthy tidbit. Tales say some court members tried to declare themselves muses without the necessary credentials, like padding a resume with skills you picked up watching cooking shows while eating instant noodles. It's whispered that the genuine muses bore this with a gracious smile, secure in their undeniable influence. Move your thoughts now to the Florentine workshops and courtrooms where these muses were discussed with reverence. Imagine Leonardo and Raphael sharing quiet acknowledgments of their beauties and mysteries, the way you might nod appreciatively over a well-crafted meme. Picture the setting. Low lamplight flickering over rough-hewn tables, kindred spirits exchanging glances that speak volumes beyond words, their discussions interwoven with thoughts of the muses who colored their art like whispers of sun breaking through morning clouds. The Renaissance dance of love, scandal, and inspiration produced works painted with emotions as rich as the silken threads woven into the finest garments of the time. For some artists, the muse's visage was more than just the subject of a piece. Instead, they peppered their imaginations with them, each thought adorned by a muse's enigma, creating artistry that endures, eternally compelling and vividly alive. Imagine this intoxicating mix of romance and creativity, gracefully etched into canvases like the flutter of autumn leaves landing in carefree swirls. It's a mix of artistry and affection that blends seamlessly together, stirring from slumber and coalescing into something spectacular. As you delve deeper into the night, cocooned in the warmth of these tales, let the dance of muses and creators sweep you into splendid dreams. Consider their stories caressing yours. The imprints they left more than shade or color, embedded in artistry's fabric, silently turning the pages of tomorrow's creativity. A dance of echoing enchantment, endlessly renewed with every tender whisper the night shares. Now, as sleep beckons softly, drift gently into this realm, where muses have painted your dreams with enrichments as timeless as the whispered secrets of history's tapestry. The night whispers on, drawing you into its gentle embrace as your thoughts wander towards the portraits of the past. Portraits that held more than just faces, but entire worlds meticulously captured within elaborate frames. In a time when each brushstroke demanded precision, these artful renderings became the mirrors of society. Silent, yet profound commentaries captured for posterity. Imagine you are staring into the eyes, peering out from a canvas painted by one of Leonardo's contemporaries, looking back across centuries. In that quiet gaze, there's more than pigment and time. There are stories of friendship, rivalry, and subtle critique layered like the whispers of the wind through ancient trees. Artists like Hans Holbein the Younger were masters of such nuance, their portraits breathing life into their subjects with as much complexity as the gentle crease of time. Holbein, best known for his portraits of the Tudor court, was not just a conveyor of likeness, but a painter of hidden truths. His works capture the vibrancy of human emotion, the flash of insight, or the contemplative shadow across a monarch's features, almost as real as tonight's passing breeze outside your window. Historians still debate whether his exploration of expression was influenced by subtexts between artists of his time, or if he danced alone in his own subtle symphony of the soul. Among the playful tales circulating about Holbein is this strangely charming, albeit slightly odd vignette. Supposedly, he inserted improbable elements into some of his works, a nod to symbolism perhaps, or maybe a dash of courtly innuendo, as if he were signaling Easter egg alert to only those observant souls who could unravel the whims of his painted riddles. In the Renaissance, artists like Holbein, Leonardo, and their peers engaged in a dialogue more reflective than we might assume, less like harsh debates, and more like curious musings over coffee. That is, assuming coffee spilled its magic back then, as it does now. You might envision these artists gathered in dimly lit rooms, surrounded by the aroma of paints and parchment, trading witticisms and insights that traveled through time on the painted visages they wrought. When confronting these timeless portraits, there's a touch of irony reminiscent of replying LOL without genuinely laughing, an insight shared in silent agreement, understanding both the sincerity and playful concealment behind artistic expression. Such was the multi-layered unity forged amidst networks of artistic creation, and even as overlooked by time as whispering secrets held in candlelit corners. In those canvases of old, where Holbein's deft lines wove, painting from heart and mind alike, you find that the subject's gaze carries not just history, but a tangible drumbeat of life's rich, intertwining comedy and poignancy recorded in quietude. Nestled in these soft musings, let your thoughts untangle and fold into the fabric of slumber, easing into dreams where colors swirl effortlessly around you. The portrait's whispers guide you onward, through artistry's varied tapestry, each glance fleeting and fervent, honest in its echo of human complexity, offering silent confessions spun of brush and bristle. As your eyelids grow weighty with the richness of unseen stories, find solace in the notion that art, despite its silent tones, resounds deeply, its rhythm nestled cherished within the gentle holding of creative reverence, carried into the dreamy worlds night has yet to reveal. The silken threads of night weave a serene tapestry, enfolding you in the embrace of history's unfolding drama, as you ponder how rivals in art could sometimes find common ground. Imagine, just for a moment, two grandmasters, perhaps Leonardo and Michelangelo, sharing more than rivalry but moments of unexpected harmony, like old friends raising a toast after a heated debate, the air simmering with camaraderie and the unspoken respect crafted from shared passion. In the treasure chest of Renaissance tales, there are whispers of gatherings where these maestros would come together, exchanging ideas and perhaps even a few laughs, mirthy exchanges that historians still speculate about with wide-eyed wonder. These meetings were akin to modern dream collaborations, where icons joined forces, each conversation charged with electricity and possibility. Historians argue whether Leonardo and Michelangelo ever truly set aside their competitive brushes, or if they simply danced around them. But here's the quirky part. Imagine them discussing innovative ideas over a glass of Chianti, like confidants caught in the glow of their own genius, yet aware of boundaries. A Renaissance TED Talk, sans the PowerPoint presentation. Modern parallels peek from the past, as if inviting youthful musings. Was there ever a moment over the clatter of goblets when Leonardo, deep in discourse about anatomical mysteries, tapped out a playful rhythm that Michelangelo, mid-dreaming of sculptural wonders, echoed in shared rapture? It's fun to imagine these titans as more than historical conquerors. They were humans, after all, prone to sharing midnight chuckles over mutual eccentricities. Let the thought linger, like the gentle sweetness of dessert wine. Perhaps there were times when competition and artistry wove a quilt of warmth, casting aside individual shadows to recognize their conjoined labor, bringing light to an era rich in ambition and imagination. As your thoughts meander through this vision of artists not just competing, but seeing silhouettes blend in unison, they find resonance in today's desire for authenticity and allies who echo our dreams. Picture cell phone notifications under the stars in quiet understanding, like knowing nods among peers. Encourage yourself to embrace this softened atmosphere, the mellow conversations seeping into your mind's eye like honeyed whispers falling from leaves, benevolent feuds evolving into quiet acknowledgement that they were all travelers through an expansive landscape of creativity, gratitude lightly draping their souls. With the passing of feigned hostilities replaced by unity's gentle illusion, let this feeling guide you softly as the night deepens towards contemplations enriched by togetherness rather than division, a testament to the strength garnered through shared vision. And as your thoughts waft into the tender embrace of slumber, embrace the allure of collective strength, blending into dreams where rivals, timeless and gentle, pause to smile at the tender, undulating paths that bind their stories together across history's kaleidoscope, softly illuminating their shared vision like the starlit sky above. Settling deeper into the velvety night, you drift into thoughts of the enduring legacies these rivals left behind, trails of artistic stardust that shimmer through the corridors of time. Leonardo, Michelangelo, and the peers who surrounded them, though often steered by competition, crafted extraordinary legacies that transcended the era's ambitious pursuits. Imagine their influence as ripples on the surface of a vast pond, each creative endeavor forging waves that would reach far beyond the Renaissance's earthly grasp. Now, envision the echoes of these legacies blending seamlessly with future generations, stirring aspiring artists like a playlist of timeless classics on repeat. How they developed the distinct language of art and science that became a grand vocabulary for centuries to use. A toolkit containing the very essence of humanity's wonder and innovation, just waiting for someone to pick it up and reimagine it anew. Historians still debate how much one artist influenced another, intertwining tales and contexts that are, at times, frustratingly tangled like a ball of yarn a playful cat has decided to toy with. Did Leonardo's notes plant seeds in Raphael's dreamy compositions? Or was it Michelangelo's sculpting eye that sharpened the chisel for Bernini? Each work, in its own right, feels like a stepping stone at the edge of a journey that every artist unknowingly embarked upon. Now here's a charming tidbit. Despite lingering rivalries, it wasn't unusual for these artists to borrow techniques and innovations, remixing them in the Renaissance's perfect symphony. What history sometimes glosses over in tales of conflict is how these brilliant minds shared an unspoken bond, intuitively understanding each other's sorrows, joys, and dreams, transcending the medium that expressed them. In this relaxed contemplation, as you snugly cocoon within your finery of cozy blankets, imagine how each artist's legacy felt like a whisper through the ages, a bridge of companionship, an unspoken pact that today's artists and creators still cross with reverence and gratitude. It's like opening endless tabs in a browser, feeling the jostle of familiar works, each informed by those that came before. Each page a nostalgic visit to art's remarkable constellation. So as the night cradles your thoughts, imagine yourself strolling through grand museums where sculptures breathe and paintings speak fresh perspectives into existence. Recognize the familiar faces in yesterday's portraits, ones that journey alongside you, sketching silhouettes that imprint gently upon your soul. As your eyes grow heavy and the world begins to swaddle you in its nighttime embrace, let the poetic rhythm of history's procession lead you steadily onward. Allow your mind to dance in the dreamscape, where art, rivalry, and camaraderie merge, a radiant tribute softly unfolding. And so, as the gentle lull of sleep wafts over you, comfort yourself in the knowledge that art's story is one of mingled hands and shared visions, spinning through time's lucid lens. Rivalries dissolve into unity's tender tapestry, connecting past to present, inviting you to dream in colors that burst beyond the dawn's awakening horizon. Let the journey continue, painted in strokes both ancient and everlasting, as night holds you peacefully under its whispered gaze.